Recently, some new economic numbers came out, and guess what? The unemployment rate fell to 3 point something percent. Utilization rate went up, and the inflation is at somewhere in the 3% area. Unheard of in what, based on prognostication, and better, it seems like we're coming in for a soft landing. A soft landing meaning that we're probably not going to go into recession. That isn't to say that people aren't suffering, that people, I mean, the structural nature of the United States economy based on capitalism has continuously affected most Americans, and has most Americans, even though you don't see it on TV or in the news, in dire straits. That's a statement of fact. That said, based on the comparative analysis of the economy, its recovery to other economies and recoveries, Biden is doing pretty darn good. And while much of the statements today is that the buying power of the average American citizen isn't what it was, let's say, a few years back, that is a continuum that we have been seeing from the inception of Reaganomics. So it's nothing new. It's a structural defect in our economy. Don't listen to what all these other guys are telling you. The economy is behaving as it should, and right now it is behaving just about the best it can under the restraints of the current capital structure that we're under. We need to change it, of course. But that said, Biden, compared to other presidents, should be ecstatic and happy. And Fox News knows it so well that they gave Chris Hayes the opportunity to ridicule how they interpreted all this good news that's coming in on the economy on the macro level. Check this out.
Once a month, the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases the latest jobs numbers, which means once a month, the country gets to watch the anti-Biden propaganda machine figure out how to deal with positive developments for the economy.
Talking about 140,000 more jobs added than was expected. It is amazing how the estimates, people keep getting the estimate wrong.
Well, listen, this is good news for American families, isn't it, Alfredo?
Well, it is, but it isn't.
I'm going to make the case that decline in the unemployment rate is actually a negative, not a positive.
Better than expected jobs numbers, Charles. Your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, for the 11th month in a row, right? I think the fix is in there.
Unemployment drops to 3.4.
That's the lowest since 1969.
Wow. Meanwhile, this story really pertains to our economy. This is Ford Motors missed sales expectations at the start of this year.
Dear viewer, this morning was no exception when November's jobs numbers came in even better than expected.
So we got hotter than expected numbers. Cheryl just gave us the numbers, 199,000 jobs versus an estimate of 180,000.
What do you think about these numbers?
It's a resilient labor market, and President Biden is going to talk about this at some point today because these are good numbers for Bidenomics, employment rate.
Because of Christmas? More people are working shops?
Strangely enough, retail employment actually went down. Well,
really?
It didn't go down.
They're seasonally adjusted. Justin Wolfers is a professor of public policy and economics at the University of Michigan, the co-host of Think Like an Economist podcast, and he joins me now. All right, Justin, you have been part of this sort of discussion debate about this economy and the sort of people's perceptions and reality. To put that aside, I want you to just describe as best you can this idea of the soft landing and why it's difficult to pull off the soft landing and where we are right now. So just what does it mean? Economists talk about this all the time, about a soft landing, and particularly a year or two ago about how improbable it was.
Right. So let's go back to what people thought the problem was. A year or two ago, about a year and a half ago, inflation was running at 9%. And the unemployment rate was all the way down at a 50-year low of 3.5%. And the thinking at the time from many economists was that one caused the other, that low unemployment, we had too much of a good thing, and that was causing inflation. So then the claim was, well, we should have a little less of a good thing, which is let's try and stop the economy enough, slam on the brakes, so that we reduce inflation. But here's the funny thing. What actually happened is inflation plummeted from 9% down to 3%. And inflation and unemployment basically moved sideways. This is actually better than anyone dreamed about with a soft landing. With a soft landing, they thought, let's get unemployment back to what we think is more sustainable. They thought 4.5% or 5%, and things will fix themselves. We got, in fact, our whole low unemployment cake. We get to eat it with lower inflation coming as well.
Yeah, you had posted this about sort of economists, sort of consensus economists polling, right? And they were asked to sort of make a bet, and their perception of where we'd be right now. I think it was a year ago, right? And the current situation with inflation where it is and unemployment, I think it was at like 10%. Like was the probability assigned? These are economists who study this being like, yeah, there's a 1 in 10 chance we could end up in this really narrow sweet spot that's going to be very, very hard to hit with inflation coming down and the economy growing and unemployment still low.
Yes. So look, one thing I want your viewers to know is sometimes good news happens. We economists are not very good at recognizing it, and sometimes we're not very good at forecasting it. And so this really is, you know, it's a better outcome than anyone saw coming, and you don't even need to compare it to expectations. I think that sort of underdoes it. I think the reality is you want to think about the fact that unemployment is near a 50-year low and inflation's returning all the way back to normal, and we've got inequality declining at the same time. Just on its face, on its merits, these are the sorts of economic numbers that not only would I dare not dream about, but many economists thought would be impossible.
So again, I want to be clear. There is much to do to fix this economy so that it lifts all boats. But comparatively speaking, the economy has rebounded. Now we just have to make sure it applies to everybody.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.